Hi, I'm here to talk about lore from Star Trek. Lore is a recurring character in The Next Generation, um, and I think the idea is that he's Data's brother, and he's great. I love Brent Spiner a lot, and having him play multiple characters is always great, and I think that playing lore helped Brent Spiner get to show off how talented he can be and how he can really play very different characters where lore certainly looks like Data, sort of similar premise, but lore is much different in terms of personality, storylines, and stuff like that. Much more villainous character and a great sort of rival character to Data. And there were a lot of Data focused episodes in The Next Generation, so giving him uh, a sort of enemy character that he could have somewhat of a personal attachment to and have a specific rivalry with uh, was really good. And lore episodes of The Next Generation were always really fun. And lore coming back for Picard was fantastic. I love what they did with him there. And I feel like the discussion that he and Data have is one of the best scenes of the Star Trek franchise, possibly one of Data's best scenes of all time, could be his very best, with his full character development really coming through, with lore representing the pessimistic side of things and Data representing optimism, and it's beautifully handled, incredibly well acted, with Brent Spiner playing two very different characters, and it's just incredibly compelling. And I do think it's interesting that they have a character called Lore, because lore is something that seems to get brought up a lot with franchises, and lore is something that I'm not as big of a fan of as other people. That doesn't mean that I don't like the concept of lore. Uh, Having references to continuity and having stuff all fit in is often really good and something that fans can really appreciate. The thing is, I feel like it's more important to have really good, emotionally compelling stories, entertaining character moments, good character development than having all the lore make sense. I feel like if certain things in canon are changed, or if certain things don't fit the best for a storyline, I feel like it's a fictional story with fictional characters. I feel like if changes are made that don't fit the best for lore, I feel like it works. Like, it's not the biggest deal. I feel like it's appropriate, because the big focus should be on stories, the entertainment, the characters. I feel like lore, continuity, stuff like that, it feels like a secondary thing in importance. Like, not that it's not important, but it's not as important as some of the other things. And I think it's very interesting that the character named Lore is a villain in Star Trek. And I don't think that lore is an evil thing for franchises or anything, but I do think it's interesting where I guess Data could represent character development being more important than lore, because the idea of Data is that he's seemingly emotionless, but there are various points in Next Generation and Picard, and even in some of the films, where he does come across as an emotional character that does things based off of his emotions and what he feels is best. And I feel like that's Data actually having emotions, which would seemingly contradict the lore. But the character development, the character, and the emotional impact is more important than the lore. And I think that's interesting because Data is the hero that wins, and lore is the enemy with the pessimistic view. So I think that's very interesting. So I don't think that lore is an evil concept or anything like that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with people caring a lot about lore. And if that's one of their favorite things, they're definitely allowed to feel that way. And I don't think that's inherently bad or wrong. But personally, from my perspective and in my opinion, I think there are more important things than lore.